For everyone who solves crime from their couch, knows more about forensics than their own job, and has trust issues with small-town sheriffs, Amazon Music's millions of podcast episodes are calling. Just download the Amazon Music app and start listening to your favorite true crime podcasts ad-free. Included with Prime.
Hey, Northbound. Welcome back. So on this episode, we're going to talk about feedback, specifically 360-degree feedback, or feedback that goes both ways. But before we do that, there's a word we have to talk about which matters more than anything else in leadership. It's the number one word, and I bet you're thinking of it, and it's trust. Trust is required before anything else. If you think about a leader in the history of our nation that was honest, you might think of Honest Abe or Abraham Lincoln. He had that nickname before he was ever president. It came from one time he walked miles to return a few pennies that he had accidentally shortchanged a customer when he was a store clerk. Or later on, his commitment to preserving the Union and abolishing slavery. His commitment to including others in leadership, working beyond his political rivals, showing respect for other people, caring about other people. And so from early on in his life and then through his professional life, Abraham Lincoln gained a reputation for integrity and being someone who was trustworthy, led to a presidency built on that, or at least recorded by history as that. So that's important. Trust is important. So we've already established that. Trust is very, very important. So then, since we've established that, now let's talk about feedback. And here are some key takeaways before we go into a few points. And the key takeaways are this. And this first one goes right back to the episode where we talked about a young airman in the squadron who spoke up, who said, hey, that's not what that picture or that patch is representing. That is something else, and you should be proud of the squadron that you serve in. And that is this point and key takeaway is that the most valuable voices often belong to those with the least power. And that is so important for feedback. So first, you have to be a trustworthy leader, and people need to trust you. And then you need to remember that the most valuable voices are often those with the least amount of power. Here's another few key takeaways. Trust determines the quality of your feedback. You're not going to get good feedback without trust. And feedback is not leadership unless it produces change that people see. If people give you feedback and there's no change or no answer to that, they're going to stop giving you feedback. It's a silly thing, but I gave feedback to the gym that I go to for a different machine. They keep asking me for feedback, but I gave them feedback that they should bring in that machine. They never have. That was like 2 years ago. Do you think I'm going to give them any more feedback? No, I'm not going to waste my time filling out the card. Now, it's their choice whether or not they bring in that machine, and that's a really silly example. But the point is that I'm done filling out the card because I haven't witnessed any change, and nobody got back to me either. So I'm not going to fill out the card. Okay. Also, you cannot demand trust. You have to earn it. You can't demand feedback either. And you're not going to get any feedback without trust that you have earned. And then as a leader, this is the last key takeaway here, is that you need to be brave enough to stomach the feedback that comes back at you and to take it. If you asked for it, you got to be willing and ready to take it. So let's go back to the core idea of feedback, primarily 360-degree feedback, which only works where trust exists. Without any trust, and this is going to maybe sound good, feedback becomes filtered, but that's not okay. You don't want filtered feedback, and it could be delayed and, in worst case, completely silent or non-existent. Without trust, you're not going to get proper or effective feedback. But with trust, feedback becomes one of the strongest tools you can have for your culture, for the health of your organization. So it starts with trust, and that is the currency that is going to make honesty and feedback possible. And so in other words, if your trust is low, your feedback is going to become polite. But where trust is high, feedback is going to be productive. You don't always want it to just be polite, okay? And you want raw, productive feedback. And so without trust, you're just going to have silence. Okay, so then how are you going to build trust so that you get good feedback? Well, you're not just going to ask for it. There are times to ask for feedback, but more important than just asking for it is when you get feedback, you respond well to it. That builds trust. Nobody's going to give you feedback if there's no response. If they never hear anything, they're done. They're not going to give feedback again. It's wasting their time. Internalize the feedback. Don't just explain it away. Well, yeah, we've been struggling with that, but that's because of X, X, Y, and Z. Don't do that. Take time to internalize the feedback that you're getting, and then don't punish honesty. If someone's honest with you, don't punish them for that. Encourage that. And then don't require perfection when listening. Just because somebody didn't give their feedback maybe in the most polished or perfect way doesn't mean that it's not needed feedback or effective, and never ignore it. So here's what trusted 360-degree feedback looks like. It is about growth. It's about looking for those opportunities to get input from others for the betterment of them, for the betterment of the organization, for growth, for not just the organization, but also for them. So finding out, how can I help you? How can I help you get better in your job? How can I help you fill in the blank? Another way that you're going to show trust is humility. Leadership needs to show visible humility. And then as leaders learn and as the organization learns, that needs to be shared. No hidden reports, shared learning across the board. And then ongoing conversations. You're not holding annual events. You're not holding little, once a month times to give reports that are just filling a requirement. Rather, ongoing conversations, sharing what the organization is doing, sharing what you are learning. And then, man, if you can admit when something was wrong or when you were wrong, that is huge. You could say, here's where I was wrong, and here's what we are going to change because of it. Because I was wrong, here's what we're going to change. That builds trust. Here are some great questions, not only to ask yourself, but to ask others. You can say, where do I make your work harder than it needs to be? Or where does the organization make work harder than it needs to be? Ask yourself how you respond when stressed or under pressure. And take time to think about, how do I respond in the workplace when I am under pressure? If you don't hear bad news right off the bat, ask yourself, why am I not hearing this bad news? And then ask your people, like, why did you not bring me the bad news earlier? Is it me? Why did you not feel comfortable bringing that to me? Like, if you have vehicles as part of your business and somebody maybe gets in a small fender bender or something like that, and they don't bring it to your attention right away, why? Is it because they're afraid of your reaction, or you want that information to flow to you quickly and accurately? And ask yourself, what do I do that builds trust in the organization? And what do I do that erodes trust? And a big question you can ask other people is, if you were in my position, if you were in my role, what is the first thing that you would change here? And then when they tell you, listen without defense. No explanation, no correction, no counter or other examples, just clarification questions, internalize it and move on. And get back to them after you've had some time to internalize it and come up with your action forward. In closing, on this episode, organizations break all the time. I have seen so many organizations break. And it's usually not because leaders stopped caring. They probably still care in most cases, but they stopped listening. Maybe they got too full of themselves. Maybe I don't know, whatever factor is, they stopped listening in all directions. And then the trust fell apart. And so 360-degree feedback is not about knowing more. It's about being humble. And one of the main things to ask yourself and others, what am I missing? Thanks everyone for tuning in to Northbound today. I hope you're encouraged and empowered in leadership. Remember, lead boldly, humbly, confidently. And if you need help, I'm here to help you. And I would love to help you. You can get a hold of me personally at chris@go-northbound.com. All right. Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Hey guys, Matt Halleck here, author of The DNA of a Man. If your marriage feels cold, distant, or stuck, no matter how much you try, it may not be because you're just failing at it. It might be because you were trained into the wrong kind of masculinity. The DNA of a Man gives you the kingdom blueprint to become confident, desirable, and rooted in real masculine authority and identity again. Grab it now. Click the link in the description.